You know.
You ready? Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Susan Parry, the state Assistant State Conservationist for Partnerships, and I'm going to open up the State Technical Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. We'll start with a welcome from Denise and then do some introductions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pennsylvania State Technical Committee. It's great to see all of you. Great to see. We have a special guest coming at the end of today's meeting, so very much appreciate having Undersecretary Bonnie be part of this session. And he's going to talk a little bit about the Regional Conservation Partnership Program and some of the opportunities that we have available to explore through that program. So just want to thank everyone for taking the time to come today and looking forward to the dialogue.
Okay, we'll start in the room here. If you would like to start now. We're going to do introductions in the room. Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead and.
Okay. Yeah, I'm John Williamson from Team Ag.
Eric Souter from Team Ag.
Kurt Wagner from Pennsylvania Rural Water Association.
Burrell King, Chesapeake Bay Commission.
Anna Kilius, Chesapeake Bay Commission. Kami Hughes, Business Services.
Julia Smith, Veterans Forever.
Barry Schradens, Capital RC&D.
Ryan Cornelius, NRCS, Assistant State Auditor. Adam Bellinger, the RCPP Coordinator.
I'm Marilyn Marks. I'm the agricultural economist here at Pennsylvania NRCS.
Melissa Hanner, NRCS, the Easement Program Manager here in Harrisburg.
Hi, I'm Heather Smeltz. I am the Assistant State Conservationist for Water Resources for NRCS.
Assessment and Acting State Resource Conservationist for NRCS.
I'm Cynthia Garland. I'm the Conservation Specialist for FSA.
I'm Heidi Secord. I'm the State Director for Farm Services Agency.
Doug Wolfgang, the Director of the Pennsylvania State Conservation Commission.
Kelly O'Neill, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Almost sorry.
I'm Ryan Stooch. I'm an affiliate with NRCS in the state office.
Dean Lawver, NRCS with the easement programs.
I'm Tony Anastasia, the Fiscal Specialist with the NRCS here.
Okay, and I'm just going to go down the list online. If you don't mind, just say your name and who you're with. Alexandra Kozak, please.
Hi, I'm Alex Kozak with Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership.
Thank you. Andrea Hernandez.
Hi, I'm Andrea Hernandez. I'm with PAW Sustainable Ag.
Thank you. We have Andrea's Otter. Okay, Scott Bearer.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Scott Bear, Chief Land Manager for the Pennsylvania Game Commission.
Thank you, Scott. Bob Hartman.
Conservation Chair, Cradle of Liberty Council, Boy Scouts of America.
Wonderful, thank you. I have Kate Breesaw.
Good afternoon, this is Kate Breesaw. I'm from BADEP, Compliance Section Group Manager.
Thank you, Kate. Catherine Brownson.
Hi there, Katie Brownson. I'm the U.S. Forest Service Liaison to the Chesapeake Bay Program.
Thank you. Brian Campbell.
Thanks for having me, Brian Campbell, State Grazing Specialist at NRCS Pennsylvania.
Chad Klotzbach.
Chad Klotzbach. I work for Allegheny Farm Services, but I'm also representing Pennsylvania Land Improvement Contractors.
Thank you. Jeffrey Chaplin.
Good afternoon, Jeff Chaplin here from USGS Pennsylvania Water Science Center.
Okay, Sedalia Cornelio, hi.
Good afternoon, Sedalia Cornelio with the Pinwheel Foundation for Community and Economic Development.
Thank you. Dave Hartman.
Yeah, hi, Dave Hartman here, Pennsylvania Grazing Lands Coalition.
Thank you. David Kahn.
Good afternoon, David Kahn, Agronomics Plus, the TSP.
Thank you. Doris Wagner.
Doris Wagner, University of Pennsylvania, Plant Resilience and Adaptability Center.
Thank you. Erin Lewis.
Good afternoon, everyone. National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Delaware Program.
Thank you, Erin. Kristen Hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kristen Hand, DCNR internal lead for the Kittatinny Ridge Conservation Landscape.
Okay, great. Joseph Habelka.
Pennsylvania DEP Source Water Protection Program at our central office in Harrisburg.
Okay. Jeremy Weaver.
Jeremy Weaver, Weaver Environmental. Hello, John and Eric.
Joe Sweeney.
Joe Sweeney, Water Science Institute. Ditto on Eric.
Thank you. Justin Spangler.
Hi, Justin Spangler, Land Studies.
Okay, Katie.
Katie Amboski, Woods and Waters Consulting, contractor for the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
Thanks, Katie. Cheryl Kelly.
With the Butler County Ag Land Preservation Program.
Thank you. Ashley Lenig.
Hi, I'm Ashley Lenig. I'm a conservation program manager with NRCS in Harrisburg. Currently on a detail in Northeast PA, so sorry I'm not there with you today. Thanks for being there,
Thanks, Ash.
Team Ag.
Dan Ludwig.
Good afternoon, Dan Ludwig, Acting Animal Husbandry Specialist with our East National Technologies and Support Center in Greensboro, North Carolina. On a detail, that's why you have Beth acting for me.
Great. Mark Dubin.
Good afternoon, Mark Dubin, University of Maryland Extension, and serving as a Senior Agricultural Advisor to the Chesapeake Bay Program. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Rogales.
Good afternoon. I'm the Schuylkill Action Network Manager with the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary.
Excellent. Melissa Anderson.
Hey, good afternoon. Melissa Anderson with the Center for Dairy Excellence. I'm the Programs Manager.
Thank you. James Palmer.
Hello, James Palmer, Acting State Forester for NRCS, Pennsylvania.
Thanks, James. Kevin Palter.
Hello, Kevin Poutler, Deputy Director, Northeastern Region, USDA NASS, National Agricultural Statistics Service.
Thanks, Kevin. John Swartzer.
Hello, I'm from DCNR Bureau of Forestry in the Woodland Stewardship section.
Hey, Tom Stahl.
Tom Stahl, Bureau of Forestry Planning Section.
Thank you. John Tauchner.
Good afternoon, John Tauscher with the Pennsylvania Game Commission.
Thank you, John. Todd Fearer.
Hello, everybody. Todd Fear, coordinator for the Appalachian Mountains Joint Venture, one of the Fish and Wildlife Service Migratory Bird Joint Ventures.
Wonderful. Thank you. Travis Green.
Yeah, Travis Green here, Northeast Territory Manager for Ag Leader Technology.
Great. And last but not least, Lauren White. Can you just say hello?
My public affairs assistant. Yes, Harrisburg.
Maybe not. She's in our office. She's our public affairs specialist assistant. Okay, so without further ado, would you like to say anything else?
No. Welcome, everybody. Looking forward to hearing from Team Ag.
We've got a great group.
Hey, Susan, this is Brenda Shambaugh with PACD. I'm also remote.
Hey, Susan, you're muted.
But basically between 2020 and completed last in 2023. First of all, I want to just give a brief introduction to Team Ag. For some of you may not know it, but one thing I want to particularly make note of is that when we got started in 2022, NRCS engineering staff helped us out enormously, guiding us. We were a brand new private entity. Several of us had worked previously with another ag engineering firm, but we came together, and I'm always so grateful for the state engineers and regional engineers, Hosea Latshaw and Pete Vandersteppen. They were just awesome to really help us get started. So appreciate that. And now 20 years later, we're still very much involved in ag engineering. We also have a strong section in ag conservation planning, as well as nutrient management planning. We also have a section of agronomists that work directly with farmers, giving crop scouting and reports, doing integrated pest management, as well as a new section now, regenerative ag. And this section started back in 2019, 2020, and very grateful for the grant that we got that really helped us get going in this. The title of our presentation is Seeking. I need to use this thing.
Got it? Okay, there we go.
The title of this, of our talk or presentation is Seeking to Connect Capital with Pennsylvania Farmers using regenerative farming practices to draw down carbon. The actual grant title didn't say seeking, it says connecting. And I must confess, we were unable to do that. And we want to tell you that story, what we did instead. But it's still very much a story in progress, and we're very hopeful about the future, mainly through this new grant that many of you are probably familiar with called Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities, which is taking part. Okay. The two main people on the grant was Eric Souter and also Dr. Sue Ellen Johnson. Or how this works.
Point it at the computer. Yeah, at my computer. Should.
You switch
About advancing?
Susan.
Yes.
Switch the thing on the side.
You might need to help her, right?
I'm not her.
Is
Is there power on
Is
this?
there power on it, on the,
There's a button on the side of the clicker and make sure it's,
it should be.
it's green, so
Yeah.
that's not the problem.
What is the problem?
It was before.
Is it me, the operator? No.
You
might
could
just have
try
to
unplugging that and
yeah.
plugging it in again.
Sometimes you
So-
have to advance at least one slide with your mouse before you.
Right.
You want to
Okay, let me advance. Let me try it now, see if it works now.
Oh, okay. So in today's presentation, we want to talk about what the situation was like in 2020 and then how the situation changed. And then from there, going through the contents of these plans that we provided for a number of farmers called regenerative farm business plans. And then also what have we learned over this time period?
There you go.
There we go. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric now.
Thanks, John. So I joined Team Ag in 2017. My background's in engineering, but I had a real interest in climate. And in that time, 2017 to 2019, there were just so many questions about how these different ecosystem service markets were emerging and what kinds of possibilities might exist for farmers there. Our farmers wanted to know the science, like what's behind this? Is this something real or something that we should, run far away from? And so we were able to begin a lot of our work with a series of the Farm Vitality Planning grants that were really focused on from Pennsylvania Department of Ag that were really focused on helping farmers consider new business opportunities. So we were framing the regenerative quest in that frame of a business opportunity. And there were several other grants from PDA as well as this one, this SIG grant, to begin building out our support to work in this area. One of the core foundational parts of our work are the 35 conservation practices that NRCS has defined as being associated with greenhouse gas reduction or carbon sequestration. But a few of the missing pieces that we saw when we were applying for the grant in 2020 were the need for more economic and financial tools to help farmers make decisions about whether to implement these BMPs. Tools that specifically supported smaller farms in PA and helped them to access these ecosystem service marketplaces, and then promotion to get the word out about these resources. After applying for the grant, a number of things really changed that started to bring new areas of focus to our work. It became more and more clear how these two first elements work together, that buyers of different credits really need them to be additional. They need to be additive to what is already a new change to what is already happening. And then also with that, and this is a good thing for all of us, that PA farms have a very high number of some of the foundational practices like no-till and cover cropping, but it also limits some of the access as well as farm size. Some of the other things that really set a lot of this work into motion were the U.S. Dairy Net Zero Initiative, targeting carbon neutrality by 2050. That brought so many farms asking questions about where do we stand right now? What are our emissions? Is this something possible? And a number of different requests from dairy cooperatives to work with small groups of farms. So I wanted to just frame the idea of regeneration here off the start and how we think about it. I had a professor in college that talked about if he would describe his marriage as sustainable, you wouldn't be overly excited for him. And I just always loved that as a way to think about regeneration in contrast as well. Like it's this ability and hope that we could bring new life to ecosystems.
It's pretty good.
So we've thought about different lenses to be able to think about that. And the way that we've often thought about farms is through this conventional lens, different physical, chemical, logistical, and financial constraints, but then adding this regenerative lens to that as well, where we're thinking about those same things, but also different ecosystem functions, watersheds, and different biological systems as well. Another way to look at that is there these core things that a farmer is always managing for here at the dairy, hundredweight components, yields, their finances. And there's so many on the left, so many different elements that already feed into that. Their feeds, manure systems, barnyard equipment. But then we're bringing this additional layer onto that where you're looking at water quality, diversity, atmosphere, and soil health as additional components to be thinking about. And then also how that relates to different regulations, co-ops, opportunities to access markets for a farmer. Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk now about the contents of these assessment plans, these business plans that we provided for the different farms. We start, basically, start out with an executive summary. And then a large piece was an education component. And we'll talk a little more about that. And then a section on analysis of the farm itself, and then recommended actions that they could do. So the first, we also wanted to provide what practices they were already doing that were regenerative. And then to mention the economic value to that, as well as the environmental value. We also wanted to give a list of possible additive or new practices that a farm could do. And again, showing the environment, whether there was an environmental benefit, an economic benefit, and then whether there'd be financial incentives for that. Another section, the next section under education, we wanted to show maps of from the American Communities Climate Maps showing the changing heat stress, water stress, and extreme rainfall. And these are climate factors that affect the farms. I mean, they're already aware of that because they're farming. They know the changing climate, but it's good to see some of that being documented. We also want to talk about all the different sources of emissions, and then also carbon storage. Again, we want to talk about the carbon footprint, what that means, net zero, what does that mean? And then also units, how this is all measured, basically, and of metric tons of CO2 equivalents. We want to kind of give them a basis of understanding so they can move forward on this. And then here's a list of the different emission sources of greenhouse gas emissions on a farm. And then the next on the other side shows the possible solutions that farms can implement to reduce those emissions. I apologize that we have to go through this very quickly, but I just want to give what is the content of these plans? They were very thorough. There are copies I understand there were printouts of them, so you could always pick them up.
John?
Yes.
John, just quickly, can you go back to that?
Yeah.
So there's many on your list that are not on our list, right? On the 35 core practices.
Right.
When you're looking at some of these, are there some that NRCS should be introducing into the core regimen or more than others?
That's a deep question. I'd rather answer that some other time.
Can we talk offline?
Yeah, yes,
about
for
that
sure.
at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's interesting. Some of those are interesting.
Yeah.
So, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Quick question.
Yeah. Kelly.
FUE in the second to the last bullet under farm actions to reduce emissions. Feed use efficiency?
Yes.
The feed management.
Yeah, I'm the feed management. Okay. We also want to help the farmers to understand the whole carbon credits, where capital might be available from private investors. And so that also took several pages. Eric's now going to talk briefly about the analysis section of our plans.
So if anyone's done this type of modeling, there's a veritable just wonderland of different modeling tools. We've used USDA's Common Farm as a core anchor for a lot of that. Another one that we've used quite a bit has been the Cool Farm tool, which helps for some of the more whole farm emissions. So here's some of the just high level understanding of where different emission sources fall out on a farm. And this factors into the first part that's a conversation about emissions and different energy use on a farm. Also the opportunity for different renewable energy sources to be able to offset some of that. And we also, water conservation work has always been central to Team Ag and the work that we do, and have used Stroud's Model My Watershed tool to be able to compare the pre-regenerative practice and post modeling of the water-based impacts for a farm. And similarly, we've used Cool Farm or tool again to begin to put some kind of understanding, you can advance on different habitat and biodiversity elements of a farm. So using land cover classification to be able to, and practices that a farmer is implementing to be able to understand what's the impact of that on the biodiversity on a farm. And then a real just central part of the analysis has been the soil health component, looking at 3 representative fields. We have a number of our analyses go to greater than 6-inch depths up to 30 inches. So looking at that soil health across the profile. And these kinds of conversations have just led to really interesting talks with producers about, what are the differences in how you've managed that could lead to these differences that we're seeing at the field level in these test results. And then we couple those tests with a modeling of the field history through comment. So being able to use it's 20 years of history to be able to get a sense of emissions, either positive or negative from that field. Another part of the analysis that we don't have a slide for is different SWOT analyses to assess both. Many of these farms have been dairy in a larger PA context, but then also farm level SWOT.
So after the analysis section, then we go into recommended actions. And these are based on the following categories: herd management, cow longevity is certainly very important. The longer you keep a cow, it also has a biggest impact on greenhouse gas emissions. And also feed management, manure management would be another area, might include composting, dry manure systems, also covering liquid storages. The next section would be field and cropping system, what changes could be made there. Energy, doing an energy audit, solar panels on a farm. There's so much roof areas on these farms that could be placed in solar. And then also with water and habitat. So we would try to come up with different recommendations for all those. And then we take those recommendations, those actions, and we compare them with what is the impact on soil carbon storage, surface water, groundwater, greenhouse gas emissions, fossil fuel emissions, and biodiversity, and also soil health. And, you know, it's very basic. We're just, if there's no impact, we'll say none, but if it's a great amount, we'll give a couple plus signs. We're not necessarily giving calculations at this point.
What is field margins?
Pardon? Field?
What are field margins?
Field margins would be the edges of the fields,
Okay.
putting hedgerows, you know, trees.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have another section that takes those practices and then looks at them during this 5, 15, and 50-year lens. That was also something very important for us, is to give a long-range plan. And it's kind of nice to use a term 5-15-50. It sounds like fertilizer. And then also whether there's funding programs for those. Then we go through a list of specific actions, and we'll do some calculations on the greenhouse gas emissions for those, and then also what are the costs and where there would be specific grants. So with a lot of these farms, one of the big items was a manure storage cover that had a big impact, and there is funding for that. So we're hopeful that a lot of these farms are going to move in that direction.
So we learned a lot of different things through this process. First and foremost is that a lot of producers are really interested to know where they stand with the emissions footprint and ways that they can improve. And then similarly, there's so many different market forces that are also looking to reduce emissions in their supply chains. But this is also a change that takes a long time. And that's as a result of management changes on the farm. And it's where we've really emphasized the importance of this longer term view, that we're really not sacrificing long-term resilience and sustainability for these short-term wins. But similarly in that, it also takes a different kind of support for implementation versus planning. And you know, we're often accustomed to turning out plans that help set work into motion. But through this work, we also see the real need to be present and supporting a farmer through lots of different stages of implementation. And that's a challenge for how to fund and make that work possible. And then, also liquid manure, as John mentioned before, is a really huge emitter, and we need to figure this out. And we have present challenges, especially for the small circular manure storages that we've been building for water quality improvement, and how to, in a cost-effective manner, balance the emissions of that. But altogether, this work and the opportunity to be able to work on this project really allowed us to build our team and capacity, and prepared us to be good partners for a number of these different climate smart commodity projects that John mentioned before. So we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to build that support here in Pennsylvania, and excited to collaborate in any ways we can.
And just to add to that, again, with that new USDA program, I'm very hopeful that we will be connecting capital from these different private entities back to the farms for these practices. Well, we have questions now. Yes, Denise.
John, do you have you mentioned canola.
Mhm.
Do we have a processing plant on the East Coast for canola?
That was a Sue Ellen question.
I don't think so, but that was Dr. Sue Ellen Johnson was very much promoting canola as a practice. So, yes.
You're proposing a lot of really interesting things that integrate all over the farm. I'm curious if you had the opportunity to work at all with like the Center for Dairy Excellence and some of their profit teams, maybe to integrate with the veterinarian or the nutritionist or the accountant or some of those other folks to see how some of this could all mesh together, or what long range planning will look like.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I would say a lot of these farms did have profit teams. So we're hoping that, but we did not in our process go through that with the larger team. That would have probably been a good improvement. And now we're working with Center Dairy Excellence on a lot of this. They're involved in this CARAT, C-A-R-A-T program, doing climate smart assessments, where we're using a lot of this information. So we'll see, but that's a very good idea. Yes.
So you created this template.
Yeah.
Pretty much you created it. How many farmers have shown interest in it, or how many plans have you done? Just curious. So far.
We've done a dozen of these plans.
Great.
But there's a lot of work from this that we then branched into, because Eric had mentioned there were like co-ops, that dairy co-ops also wanted us to get involved, let's say in soil health.
Right.
So some of that piece we would then, but we had to tailor it. They weren't always interested in going with a full-blown plan like this.
Yeah. And the average cost of the plan typically is it?
Yeah, it was around $10,000.
Okay, so then the Farm Vitality Planning Grant was a benefit.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Two quick questions, and also Red Birch Energy in Bassett, Virginia, is a canola biodiesel. These plans seem like they should be a living document almost moving forward. Do you have benchmarks for the time markers of 15 years that there would be a revisitation of the plan or an intention for that? And then also, is there a way to track or vet the plan's accuracy moving forward? So you say, all right, this is a plus. And can we go back, and do you have a way to put that into a mechanism, spreadsheet, whatever, to say, you know what, our pluses are actually question mark pluses, or are you gonna be able to track that? And within the funding, is there a mechanism to track that to demonstrate forward moving success?
That's such a great comment, and things that we really want to move into. And like we talked about a bit in the challenge of planning versus implementation work, it really is unique in the way that it is this living document that hopefully can be being revisited. And but yeah, it's been exciting to see a number of farmers, like with the climate smart commodities opportunities, acting on portions of the work that was defined in these plans and using that opportunity to really revisit that component and move with it.
If I could just add to what Eric said to your question, you'll notice that the charts that we had, were plus, they weren't necessarily numbers. I mean, we would try to give an overall number, but we said, in terms of what their actual footprint was. But it was with quotes, and it was like, hey, well, this is the best that we understand the estimate to be. But personally, I mean, we were even talking about this on the way here. There are different models out there. The models do need to change, and we know they're being discussed, so who knows what it's gonna be, so.
And subsidies change too. We might not be getting solar SRACs at the same
Right.
rate you're getting today.
We have two questions online.
Yes.
The first one from Joe Sweeney, was there any specific reason why you used the Cornell lab for the soil analysis?
There would have been several different labs that we could have gone with. Has a really developed biological and physical components to the soil test results, in addition to the chemical. And the tools that they give to help visualize that for farmers, I think are really helpful.
And they had a soil health package, where they went into all those different components.
Nice.
Yeah, it's being widely used.
It has nothing to do with John being a Cornell alumni.
Yeah.
And then John Schwarzer asked, what is SVO?
SVO.
Yeah, I think it was 2 slides back.
Yeah, canola as SVO or biodiesel.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Soybean vegetable.
Yeah.
What's that?
Soybean vegetable oil. Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, it's fair.
Aside from the carbon credits, just on the soil health alone, were you come up with many recommendations of soil health improvement that would be profitable for the farmers to do on their own, just for soil health and maybe crop improvement or drought resistance and benefits like that? Because a lot of these guys are in a pretty good situation now. It's
They were
to improve on that.
Yeah, I mean, these were all pretty much progressive, very progressive dairies, and we're already doing these practices. But additional practices, I'm just crop rotation, doing that. I mean, trying to move from. I mean, there was some. There were some practices that would really help a lot, like, let's say I'm managing heifers, putting them out on pasture, taking cropland, using that as pasture. But boy, there was a lot of hesitancy there. Or moving away from the corn, soybean rotations to something with more, bringing in other kinds of legumes. Yeah, they know that, but whether there's financial incentives, and there are incentives to do that, but there's reluctance because the goal of these dairies is to produce enough feed.
Yeah.
We have gotten to do some of these analyses after this project with smaller plain sect farms. And it's just interesting to see how different they are in many ways.
Looks like SVO is straight vegetable oil.
Straight vegetable oil. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious if you see any potential for in the future for these plans to be connected to a certification, like certified regenerative organic or some sort of marketing label for farms.
That was a big question early on, and because there was one farm that a large dairy said they were quite eager to join this program only if we could certify it. Well, then there are different ways of certifying it, but not, we haven't done that. Any other questions? Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Done in plenty of time. Thank you so much.
Oh, you got
Thanks, Don.
Very much appreciate that. Up next is our technical reports. So Heather, I think you're delivering engineering and Beth, you're delivering ecological sciences today. Thank you.
Let's see if I can get this up and running.
Yeah. Got you queued up.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
We're working. It's good to be with everyone. I've now and then gotten a chance to sit in, but Tim was normally the one covering everything as the state conservation engineer. Until I switched to this role last year, I was on his staff, so sorry you got an engineer up here. You know, we're getting lucky by not having Tim. I want to touch on, Mark Buckwalter, our EWP project, program manager, and I collaborated on the presentation today. Just give you an update or a broad sense of what's going on in the engineering world. One of the big things happening right now is that we're running 2 different emergency watershed protection programs. If you're not familiar with the program, it's the program that comes in after there's been a major storm event to restore and repair stream banks to protect businesses and residential properties. In July 2023, there was a large event that came through. 15 total sites had allocated NRCS EWP funds. EWP, the Emergency Watershed Protection Program, can provide 75% of construction funds for the projects. The other 25% has to come from a non-federal outside source. And we're partnering, when we do that, we're partnering with a local sponsor. In this case, for July, we have 9 sites in Berks County, with 4 in Bucks and 2 in Chester. And the sponsors are the local conservation districts. 9 of those 15 sites have the matching 25% funds. Most of that is being provided by PADEP. So thank you for that. And then some of the counties are paying for it, and others are the landowners themselves are paying for some of the remaining portions. The designs are progressing, and we're looking forward to moving to construction this summer for those. And then in September, we got hit. It was kind of nice, guys, because you showed your map of the future predicted rainfall amount, or flood amounts in 2050, which kind of ties into EWP a little bit that we've seen. And we have, from the September storms, there's 9 sites that we're working on with allocated NRCS EWP funding. Those are in the Northeast, Lackawanna, Luzerne, and Wyoming counties. And the conservation districts and the city of Scranton are those sponsors. So our sponsors can vary in size and complexity, but they're all generally a unit of government. And again, DEP is providing the matching funds for those. And there's special funds coming through the Chesapeake Bay targeted funding. And again, we're on a construction timeline of this summer. Switching away from EWP a little bit, trying to get in some of the more other concerns going on with generalized engineering. Tim has taken the lead, providing good guidance for our state regarding high pathogenic avian influenza. We're fortunate right now that there's no quarantine areas in Pennsylvania, although it has been identified in a backyard flock in Wayne County. The big excitement right now is that it's also been identified in dairy cattle, with the closest herd being in Ohio to us. So the state actually just implemented quarantine restrictions before the cattle are allowed to move into the state to make sure that we're not bringing in contagious cattle. So we're continuing to practice good biosecurity. We're continuing to educate our staff and promote that our staff practice good biosecurity as we're doing site visits. So that's where we're at with HPAI. We've been busy doing a lot of trainings. Last week, we finished up the in-person portion of our basic boot camp. We offer 2 sessions of boot camp, a basic and an advanced, and the advanced also has 2 sessions, one tailored to agronomy and one tailored to engineering. We wrapped up the in-person in Lewisburg last week. We had a virtual day or 2 to come to finish that up. It was fun. We had 37 participants from all across the state, from different agencies, different partners in NRCS. Beautiful weather, at least the day I was there, we had beautiful weather with just a little bit of rain, but we were talking hydrology. So what do you expect on a hydrology day? Boot camp level 2 is coming up. That's And I think we're talking no, we're not. Yes, we're talking 2 sessions of boot camp 2. So we did 2 sessions of boot camp 1 last year. So it's continuing on to 2 sessions of boot camp 2 with 15 engineering participants and 42 agronomy participants. And I just want to mention real quickly that trainings are huge for us here in Pennsylvania and training our staff. And we take a lot of pride in being able to train our staff and our partners. Last year alone, the engineers provide over 7,700 contact hours of training, which is quite an impressive number. And we're very proud of that.
And that's just the engineers, right?
That's just the engineer. Now that doesn't, I am counting boot camp as part of that.
She often doesn't count the agronomists. So.
I didn't have numbers for the agronomists. We don't, but even just engineering alone,
right?
That's a huge number. So relating to that, we have concrete fundamentals coming up in May. We are continually doing the Act 38 training, the ACA manure storage, which is also coming up in May. And we were trying to schedule a civil 3D training, which has been pushed back till later in the fall. But April and May, while we can get on fields before they get planted, it's like boom, 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 boom. Every week there's some kind of training going on. And you're missing, there's some staff here that's missing today because they're doing wetland trainings the next 3 days. And that's not engineering, but they're having, a wetland training in Lebanon today, wetland NHEL, I should say, partnering with FSA, in Lebanon, in the West, and then up in Bloomsburg. So our staff are continually busy. And besides the training, we're partnering. We're partnering with the STC, and since the STC has announced HRG, we're working with HRG to help provide oversight for our partners in conservation and provide support for their certification programs. We're working with them and generating ideas for future trainings for different staff and different counties, looking at some of those different practices to get folks trained up again. We're working with them and with the center to help grow technical capacity and looking to fulfill those MOU commitments that we had said.
Maybe explain what HRG and SCC for those that may not know.
Okay.
Thank you.
So SCC is the State Conservation Commission, Doug. And Penn State, I should probably have mentioned as well, are partnering together, and SCC brought on HRG, which is a local engineering firm.
We're all three.
All three, yes.
Yep.
Penn State.
NRCS, SCC, Penn State.
Penn
That's
State.
Right. And then HRG is the contract.
Yes. Yes. And HRG is providing engineering support
That's correct.
to the partnership with NRCS engineering.
Just hoping to build that overall capacity alongside of NRCS and the engineering side and design for agronomic side as well. But yeah, really shout out to that partnership.
Yep.
It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, that was good. So my main role is the Watershed Rehabilitation and Watershed Flood Prevention Operations Program. So I wanted to give you a couple updates about what's been going on with the watershed rehabilitation, because it's one of our bigger things, but I call it the crock pot program because it seems like it takes forever to get stuff done. But I always tell people that you get so much better food out of a crock pot than you do a microwave. Except for maybe the cakes in a mug, but we'll just let that one slide. So that's why you don't often hear from me very often. But one of the things that we're excited about is that one of our dams will hopefully be going to construction this year. So when that one's completed, we'll have completed the rehabilitation of 4 dams. And this one's Conduitville Dam out in Crawford County. It was one of the first ones that we had started working with. The other one that's ready to go to construction is Kins Creek Dam, which is in Pike County. So we're going all the way from the northwest to the northeast part of the state. It's waiting supplemental sponsor funding, and then that one will go to construction. And Hamilton Dam in Tioga County, the north central part of the state, permitting is almost complete. So then once the sponsors have the rest of their money, it can go to construction as well. So I mentioned in the very beginning, EWP and NRCS can pay 75% of construction costs. The sponsor is responsible for the other 25%. For a watershed rehabilitation program, it's similar. NRCS can pay 65% of construction costs of rehabilitating a dam, including the design and the planning for it. But the sponsor, normally the owner, the local unit of government, is responsible for 35%. So as the projects get expensive, their costs are also there too, and they're also seeking supplemental funding.
So Heather, why don't you explain what's happening with some of these costs and how they're rising for some of these partners? But NRCS does pay for 100% of the planning, 100% of the design. We usually break when the rehabilitation of these dams, we do 65% of the construction. The partner's expected to do 35% of the construction. We put engineering bid estimates together, so do our contractors, and the increase has caused.
Yeah. So a lot of times we're putting our bid estimates together, our best estimates together during permitting, because we're moving it forward during permitting. And sometimes permitting takes a lot longer than anticipated, or there's things like COVID that happen that have really caused problems with supply chains. And we're seeing costs jump 40, 50%. So actually Conneautville, we had gone to bid 2 years ago, right after COVID, based on the cost estimate that we had right before COVID and the funding, because that's what was used to solicit for funding. And DEP was kind enough to provide $750,000 toward the project for the sponsor's portion of the funding. And then we went to bid and didn't have enough money available. So the project sat. So we have a high hazard potential dam that needs work to it. It's been drained. So it's not falling down. No one's really at risk, but it really needs to be brought up to current standard. And it's sitting because of lack of funding. The sponsors were able to secure a grant through DCED for some additional funding, and NRCS was able to put up the rest. So again, we're moving into construction. More hopeful this time that we'll have enough funding, because if we don't have the funding available, we can't even issue a contract. That's basically what happened with Kids Creek, except we never got to bidding, because by the time permitting was complete and we looked at costs, it's like, well, there's no way that we're going to be able to bid it. And for the costs that we had gone into permitting with, and the time it took for permitting on that one. So we've seen costs jump. Sponsors are looking anywhere they can. They're generally looking through the state, because they're small communities. They don't have the deeper pockets that other people do. So as these, and we're doing our best to help facilitate as much as we can, but it's supposed to be a non-federal, it's regulated to be a non-federal source. Is there anything else you want me to cover with that, Denise?
Well, one of the ideas we're entertaining is, because the permits are taking upwards of a year to 18 months to clear through Department of Environmental Protection. So one of those things we're trying to do is, in essence, enter into an agreement with them to help somebody help them staff.
Yeah.
Because they really need help. They've been so gouged with lack of staffing in that area that it's become critical to help them as if we can, or find other sources of help for that, because it's it really does have an impact on getting this work done.
Very much so. And just to piggyback on that a little bit, the dams, and you'll hear me talk a little bit more about this, especially with my last bullet here about National Dam Safety Day. But NRCS across the country has over 12,000 flood control dams. In Pennsylvania alone, we have about 90. We have more dams than Army Corps of Engineers. Theirs are just bigger and a lot more well-known. Ours are smaller and in smaller watersheds. But since 2005, in Pennsylvania alone, our dams have provided over $635 million just in flood reduction benefits. So there are significant infrastructure savings to the local communities below them. And the challenge is that I think 2/3 of them are over 50 years old. So most people have moved in below and have no clue that that dam is up above them, acting as a silent sentinel, protecting them from flooding that folks saw over 50 years ago. So with that, May 31st is National Dam Safety Day. It's National Dam Safety Awareness Day. It commemorates the anniversary of the Johnstown flood, of South Fork Dam failure in the western part of the state. 1889, the dam failed after periods of long rain. If you have not been out to it, the Johnstown Flood Museum and the site, the National Park site are fabulous. Super interesting to see some of the movies and to listen to and see some of the exhibits. But it highlighted the need for dam safety. I mean, over 2,200 people lost their lives that day, and everything that happened could have been prevented. So the day was created to recognize the benefits, but also the hazards associated with the dams, and knowing that they are aging, that populations are moving in down below them that don't even know they're there. And now you get this thing called hazard creep. So they may have been designed to a lower design standard when they were built because there was no one down below them or less people. And now there are more. So now maybe they're high hazard potential, which just purely a reflection of what would be damaged or if there's a risk of loss of life down below. It's not a condition of the dam itself. So our dams are safe, our dams are aging gracefully. But if something would happen to them, there is a potential for loss of life. So they're all considered high hazard potential structures.
Just notice that woman in the foreground, isn't it crazy?
Yeah, that's some of the debris from Johnstown, the picture after the fact. Yeah, it's
an amazing museum, it really.
It is, and I'm pretty sure it used to be the old library that was built by Andrew Carnegie. So it's a lot of history in the area. So just wanted to promote National Dam Safety Awareness Day. If you have flood control dams that are doing good things, good for you, but make sure they're staying safe and that they're well maintained. That's the best thing you can do. With that, that's the end of my presentation, unless there are any questions.
I have a question. Kurt, from Rural Water, what's the criteria or who do you look to admit to boot camps for your boot camps?
Boot camp admittance is generally handled through PACD. So it's an application through the Pennsylvania Association of Conservation Districts. It's county partners, it's state partners, it's NRCS, and occasionally we do have TSPs in there, don't we, Denise?
So, wow, what generally happens is State Conservation Commission and NRCS contract with PACD. So it's not really a PACD event, it's an NRCS State Conservation Commission event. But the priority is NRCS and Conservation District employees first. If there's room for others, we do nonprofits, local people like Chesapeake Bay Foundation, Western PA Conservancy and others, Pheasants Forever. And then an ag preservation boards. And then if we don't fill it up, we usually have TSPs invited.
Yeah.
Just to shout out the number of people that are trained through the boot camps. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt someone.
Go ahead, Doug,
This
and then
is
we'll
Brenda.
address. Oh,
I just wanted to say that Denise is correct, that the funding comes from the STC and NRCS. And one of my staff people is a project manager who helps them organize the event.
And handles all the registration.
And right, all of that, all the administrative.
And the
stuff.
meals, not the most important part, but they're well fed, trust me.
But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say a shout out to that partnership again with NRCS and with PACD on the boot camps. It's probably one of the most significant or important things we do in the year, throughout the year. So just really, look forward to that opportunity all the time.
And you notice with the technical centers, there's been discussion of training private sector a little bit more.
Yes,
but I
correct.
know it's a need.
Sure.
Okay, next we have Beth Sassaman.
Let me provide just a brief update on what's happening with the ecological sciences. I'll start talking about training first, since Heather talked about that quite a bit. So we also, our staff provide support for the boot camp trainings. We also have intro to conservation planning coming up in May. That is full. We actually had to waitlist some folks, so it was very popular. There will be another session in November. And then also we'll have certified conservation planner training in September as well. So those trainings happen every year, and they're ongoing, and again, very beneficial to that partnership. I wanted to highlight Tech Guide Notice 287, which came out in February. It contains 15 practices that have been updated. This is available on the Field Office Tech Guide online. Deep tillage, feed management, field operations emission reduction, fire break, forest farming, forest stand improvement, fuel break, grazing land, mechanical treatment, riparian herbaceous cover, soil carbon amendment, tree and shrub pruning, upland wildlife habitat management, wetland creation, wetland enhancement, and wetland wildlife habitat management. So there are copies of the Tech Guide Notice on the table out there. It's also available online, and it highlights what the changes are. Some of them are very minor, just wording changes. Others have are more substantial. So there is a description of each change in that Tech Guide Notice. The other thing I will say is currently early successional habitat development, practice 647, is open for comment and review, and also aquatic organism passage 396. So both of those practices are being revised, and we're currently accepting comments. So if anyone has any interest in reviewing those, please let me know, and I can get you the draft, and you can certainly comment. We will be accepting those. The other thing I will say is that 2 practices are coming up for review here in the near future: a forest trails and landing, practice 655, and tree and shrub establishment, practice 612. And on that note, we'll be welcoming a new state forester in May. Christopher Peters is coming to us from Virginia NRCS. And we also welcomed a new state wildlife biologist, which is me, but I'm still acting for Dan. So, yeah. So
tell them where you came from.
Came from the, I was a DC in Chester County for 12 years. So very familiar with the field and what happens there. So, yeah. And I think that's the only updates I have. Does anyone have any questions?
I just wanted to add, if you are on the distribution list for the State Technical Committee, you should have received the notice. And if you do need it, or if you'd like to, Ted, to send that, we can make a note of it. The access instructions, the link is there on the document itself, and it will be posted on the public website for the State Technical Committee.
And like I said, there's copies out on the table, but if you need anything, if you have any comments, just send them to me and I'll compile them and submit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a PA Grazing Coalition report, I think, with Dave Hartman. Dave, are you on?
I'm here.
Great, thank you for joining.
Would you like me to advance the slides for you, Dave?
That'd be good if you can do that, Susan. There's only 7 or 8 slides. There's not many.
Okay. Okay. Are you seeing the presentation?
Yes, it's there.
Just give me the signal when you're ready.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk today and give a brief update on the Pennsylvania Grazing Coalition. I'm sure most of you have heard that term before. The PA Grazing Coalition's been around, I think, for over 20 years now at this point, and several states have grazing coalitions as well. I think there's 19 states right now, as well as a national grazing coalition. So, so things are happening nationwide, and then things are happening in a lot of states, and we're looking to try to build on what we have here in Pennsylvania. So go ahead and forward to the next slide, Susan.
Sure. Maybe you could expand on your position, Dave, and where you came from, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was going to do that on
Unless
the
you-
next slide.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I was in the right place at the right time, I guess, as far as my career is concerned, and retired last year after 38 years as an agricultural extension agent with Penn State. And about the same time, there was talk that before that the coalition was going to be looking for a part-time coordinator. And I had worked with the coalition as a technical advisor for Penn State, or through representing Penn State Animal Science Department, and it was a good opportunity. So we were able to make that happen, and so I actually started last year, retired from Penn State on September 30th, and then started part-time with the coalition on October the 1st, basically. So there wasn't a whole lot of turnaround time there, but what we're working on is this. The coalition has two different grant projects. There's a 5-year program, or a 5-year grant, which helps us with web services, and we have an MOU with Capital RC&D. The RC&D handles our funding and takes care of a lot of different aspects of running this organization. So they've been really a valuable partner in this whole process. The 5-year grant also has an aspect in it with mini grants. So we do mini grants for different grazing events, field days, conferences, things like that throughout the state. And then there's also funding in there to help with some mentoring. And I think we have 4 or 5 different mentors on board. I'll talk about that program a little bit more in just a few minutes. And we have some mentors through the 5-year grant. So the grant the grant that I work on actually is a 2-year project, which went into effect last year and runs through May 31st of 25, as you're seeing on the slide there. And this is the exact verbiage that was put into the grant. And the purpose of the agreement was to serve partnering organizations more effectively throughout Pennsylvania by building the capacity of GLC to provide technical and educational resources, as well as facilitate increased collaboration among stakeholders. So as part of that, there was 5 different areas that were major endeavors with this. One was to hire the part-time coordinator. Another one was to strengthen the all-volunteer board and produce ongoing training programs, expand our grazing mentorship from what we have in the 5-year program, and also to enable demonstration of low-cost technology on grazing farms. Okay, Susan, forward to the second slide. Okay. All right, so we basically operate with 5 different major goals with this project, with the 2-year grant. And that first goal is to help PAGLC to be able to develop greater capacity and sustainability by providing the coordinator to help achieve that goal, and the goal of helping make the programs and activities described in the proposal a success. So we've, in the process, we've recruited 2 new board members since last summer. The board of GLCI is made up, or GLC is made up of folks that represent different organizations in agriculture in the state. So we may have people that represent Farm Bureau, Grange, Cattlemen's Association, Equine Council, and other organizations as well as people that are considered members at large. Last year we were able to bring in 2 new people onto the board. One is a member at large, the other is representing the Pennsylvania Forage and Grassland Council as a partner there. So another aspect of this goal is updating calendar of events. So this is a challenging one, is finding out about different events that are coming up around the state. But the goal was to consolidate all these into one calendar where folks can go and just look and see what's going on in different places. And even though it may not be next door to them, maybe they want to travel to it and they would have no other way to know about the meetings. So if you know meetings coming up regarding grazing, and you're part of the state, please let us know so we can get those into the calendar. It's an ongoing challenge to get that done. I've spent some time trying to gain more insight into what other state GLCs do. Their goals and missions are variable across the country, depending on what's determined by their board and input from other folks involved in grazing livestock. So it's interesting to see what other states have done, what their initiatives are, how they fund them, and that sort of thing. As part of our board development effort, we're planning a workshop called Vision to Action, and that's going to take place in October. And we know we have a board that we would like to get some younger members into the board and have them stay. And it's been a challenge to recruit younger members to get on the board and be able to keep them there. And so we've talked about doing board succession. But before we get too far down the road into succession, we need to be thinking about really what direction do we want to go with this organization and what do we want it to do. And we're also planning to apply for some more grant money. There is grants have been announced, and those are due at the end of May. And so I'll be working with Ann Basor at the Capitol RC&D to try to get another grant application in. So. Okay, forward to the next one, Susan. Okay, goal number 2, this was to increase the availability and ensure technical credibility of technical assistance to support Pennsylvania's grazers. And what we did here was I pulled together a small committee of folks that had already done some work in this direction before this grant came into play. And our current committee involves representation of one of the grazing specialists, J.B. Harold from NRCS in southwestern Pennsylvania, as well as Tom Ulrich from Southwest Project Grass, and also Leanna Dupstat from Penn State Extension, and myself. So we're working on this. We're planning a training session for October out in Westmoreland County, and the idea here is to train more conservation employees to be able to do the background work and initial part of grazing plans in the state, and then be able to hand those then to the specialists to take from there. And we're looking to be able to duplicate the meeting materials to be able to have basically be able to take that out to other parts of the state and be able to offer that to other audiences. So. Okay, next slide, Susan. Okay, goal number 3 is our educational resource goal. And what we've decided here, to me, GLC already had an education committee, so that was the natural committee basically to take on this challenge. And so this is their goal, which would be to make this kind of thing happen with our resources. We have resources on the web, but we have a lot of individual fact sheets and things like that tagged. And it's a problem to try to maintain that. We find that a lot of them over time disappear and the links don't go anywhere. So we're hoping to actually be able to actually have fewer links in the future and narrow that down to landing pages from what we know to be good, legitimate sources of information that we think should be easily available to folks in Pennsylvania, as well as our limited resource veteran women and Spanish-speaking audiences that also are out here in the state. And so we're going to look to make that happen. So, okay, next slide. Project number 4, or goal number 4, was to enhance the mentorship program. So you heard me mention about mentorship on our 5-year grant. There's mentors on board for that grant, and then we have funding through the 2-year grant to have 10 more mentors. And I've recruited 5. We have 5 people out of that 10 identified at this point. And so just in a nutshell, the mentors receive a stipend for their effort. We pair them with an individual, hopefully not too far from where they live, but in some cases, depending on enterprises that they're interested in, there may be some distance there. So we do have a travel stipend as well for these folks to work with a mentee for a year and be in regular contact with them through any means that they choose, whether it's phone calls or texting or whatever, but also to visit each other's farms a couple of times And so I've found from doing some background work and talking to folks that have been mentored or been a mentee in this program that they find that the farm visit part is especially important to them. And that means the mentor visiting their farm and them visiting the mentor's farm. We did open this up for NRCS staff, and Brian Campbell helped me identify a couple of folks there that were interested. And to show you how important this can be to offer this kind of mentoring to staff there, one of the folks that is a mentee from NRCS has a good background in tropical forages, but not as much in cool season forages. So we paired her up with a grazer in Adams County, and she's going to visit his farm each season of the year to just see what forages he's using at that point in the season and discuss those. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is the fifth goal then, and this was to demonstrate technology. And we do have some temporary fencing materials that we're going to get out to our mentors that they can help these mentees get set up if they're looking to just get started and demonstrate this technology. I've been spending more time out of this goal working on the application of virtual fencing technology. We do have one cooperator identified at this point. So virtual fencing technology works with GPS, and the animals wear a collar, and it works just sort of similar to like it would for for pets by giving an audible warning to animals or cattle, small ruminants, whatever we're grazing. And then if they cross over a certain line, they do get a little electrical stimulation to turn them back around. And at that point, then the way it works is typically the audible warning is enough to get them to stay where we need them. So this is something that's just coming. When I was still with Penn State, we were starting to get a few phone calls on this, and it's something that's I think is going to get pretty big. So there's near as we can determine, there's 4 different companies operating in the United States that have this technology available. One of them only wants to focus out west on big acreages. One is they're not quite compatible yet. It's a foreign company, and some of their stuff is not quite compatible with our systems here. But we have been talking off and on to a small startup company in Nebraska and they're relatively confident that their system will work here in Pennsylvania. So we are going to demonstrate that hopefully this season once we get the equipment on a farm in Schuylkill County. So there's lots of logistical challenges with that whole program. So it involves a lot of different considerations. So it's pretty tough to find the cooperators there that can make it work for us. But we've got at least one that's committed to it. So. Okay, that's all I have. You want to go to the next slide, Susan? If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions online? Go ahead, Doug.
I did have a question, Dave. Ironically, today about a number of conventional dairy operations that may have transitioned to more rotational grass-fed dairies. Do you have any statistics on that? I'm not sure if there's anything in the latest ag census. But I did have a question just ironically before I sure if you have any insights there.
That's a good question. I really don't know. I know what you mean, but I have not seen statistics that really spell out what the transition has been. And I'm not sure where you would find that, honestly, or if it exists even. So
interesting question.
And I know
Kevin Butler's on the phone from NAS. Kevin, do you have any information on that from NAS? Was on.
Yeah.
Kevin Butler, are you still on there?
Yeah, I don't think NAS breaks it down that far. I do know that there is at least one small company that has been picking up more cooperators in Pennsylvania for all grass milk. And but I don't know the numbers. I know they had well over 100 people, and they're based out of New York that were shipping to them. So Yeah, some serious.
Yeah, we
numbers.
just think, sure, we just think that we could say it's a trend, right? With, given the smaller dairy operations that continue to struggle to find markets, looking at this as an opportunity from a marketing perspective.
I'd be excited to dig it out again. The Pennsylvania Association, or I'm sorry, the Pennsylvania Center for Dairy Excellence.
Yeah.
Has a great report they release, I don't know if it's every few years, and actually had Pennsylvania dairy producer, not only adoption, but also sentiment about intensive grazing. And there was some regression about the perceptions that it was too much work. I think the report's a few years old now, but definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah.
On their website.
Thanks for flagging that.
I know some of the farmers, there's been this discussion about branding,
Yeah,
grass-fed, grass-finished. The branding
sure.
issue has come up many times over the years too.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to get some data from NAS.
I have a question, very random. So I'll go and do engagement at different events. This was in the Christiana area. I had a gentleman who has a grazing farm. He was interested in creating his own grazing plan, but he just wanted to talk to me because I'm an individual, not a government organization. So he wanted a LiDAR map of his farm, that type of thing. Would you be an appropriate person to say, hey, you should talk to my friend Dave, and he could come over or connect you to someone who would love to talk to you about this in order to not send him directly to USDA because he's plain sight, he's not going to be interested for my conversation. That's the question.
Did you hear that, Dave?
Parts of it.
Sorry,
Can you
say it louder.
Susan, can you say it again or just sum it up?
Yes, I guess access to someone to assist in developing a grazing plan for a plain sect operation, interested in developing their system a little bit more. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and for me, he basically wanted me to produce free maps, which I'm happy to do, but I can't necessarily go to Kinko's in Lancaster County and print them and then deliver them because there were some limitations for getting things through email, that type of thing.
Yeah, mapping and maybe, go ahead, Dave, sorry.
They're looking more for a private consultant, basically.
I think they're looking for resources that are free and under the table. Let's be honest.
Even though it's ultimately government or public funding.
Can I send them there and get the available resources?
I would suggest, yes, they can contact Dave. If that's okay, Dave.
They could contact us. We wouldn't probably do the plan, but we may be able to help them find a way that they can get it done. Have a person to help get it done.
And Dave could be the go-between to get them a free map from Web Soil Survey or one of our platforms.
Yeah, we can probably.
Okay, anything else for Dave? Okay, thank you so much, Dave.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, next up is Susan Perry. Susan, you're up for.
I am going,
an outreach.
yes, I'm going to yield my time today because we have a special guest coming and I don't have a whole lot of updates. So I'm going to yield my time to the easement staff and
Right, I'm not the special guest, but at the end of the day, it's time for that special guest.
and the clicker is right there if you want it. Thank
Okay,
you.
what do I do? I just.
Yep, just
This
hit
one, that one, that
one
one.
or the other.
There's a lot of them.
Hello, I'm Melissa Hanner. I am the easement program manager for the NRCS in the state of Pennsylvania. I work here in Harrisburg. And I'm just giving a super brief update where we are this year. If I get the right button.
There you go.
Okay, so currently these are the easement program funds that are available in Pennsylvania NRCS. The ASEP, Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, ASEP ALE, is an entity-held easement program. So entities have access to federal money, but the entities are the holders of the easement and go through the acquisition process. The RCPP is also an entity-held easement program where our partners are holding those easements and going through the acquisition process. They have federal funds available. The one entirely US held easement program we run is the ASAP WRE, the Wetland Reserve Easement Program. So historically, we've had different programs. With each farm bill, it changes up a little bit more, but this is where the money's coming from right now. And here I have listed the entities that help us make this all happen. So our ASAP ALE and our RCPP programs, these are our partner entities that are taking those applications from the landowners and acquiring the easements. So this is our right-hand person here. You'll see with ASAP ALE, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture is working with the county farm preservation boards to take those applications. Also, the Land Conservancy of Adams County, the Lancaster Farmland Trust, and we have a new applicant to hold ASAP ALE agreements right now, which is the Brandywine Red Clay in Chester.
So Melissa, for the interest of the group, so that you understand, the RCPP is the Kittatinny at the top.
Yes.
And then the Buffalo Creek is named there, so you can see how much comes in at NRCS, how much is in for the partner. And then the Farm Friends Climate is the one that's the PDA, the RCPP 2712. So
right, so
we decide we're gonna post this every meeting because it's hard to keep track of all of them that are going on.
Yes, it is hard to keep track of. And RCPP, we have several entities helping bring in easement applications, and RCPP has the flexibility that each year there is an opportunity for our entities to initiate a project. These projects are for ag lands, and some of them are for forest easements as well. You're going to hear later on, we have a new funding opportunity for our CPP, a new opportunity to put in projects. And I would say this is if your organization wants to tap into federal funds for preserving land, whether on farmland or on forest land, RCPP, take a look at it. Take a look at the new funding opportunity that's going now through July, I believe. And this year, fiscal year 2024, we have 3 new applications. We thank those partners in Schuylkill, Cumberland, and Chester County that have brought in applications to spend money protecting farmland. And we have 3 new applications for US held wetland reserve easements in Lebanon, Blair, and Juniata County. And our RCPP partners, we have the 8 new applications through the Kittatinny Ridge, 5 of those through Lebanon County we're excited about. We're excited about all of them, but whenever we have a new entity bringing in applications, that's good news. 1 application in Buffalo Creek, Armstrong County, and those are our totals. We are done taking applications this year. The fiscal year for federal programs is a little different. We continue taking applications, but our next round of officially funding and contracting money won't happen until the beginning of our next fiscal year, or November 1, 2024 will be when we are. So get your applications ready now. Easements are a lot of work, and have them ready for November 1st, and we'll be happy to take new applications.
John Schwartzer would like to know if the ASAP WRE is compatible with wetland banking.
It's not a mitigation program.
So no, but it's not compatible with wetland mitigation banking, but reach out to me if you'd like to learn more about it.
So John, the wetland reserve easement program is basically it's a permanent perpetual easement. It restores generally prior converted cropland or wetland pasture. It takes it out of farming and then puts it into, that wetland use. So, oftentimes the rights that go with that are, the United States government takes all the bundle of sticks, right, Doug? All the bundle of sticks except, private enjoyment of the property. And, there are no mitigation components or anything related to that. At this point in time, we have over 5 million acres of conservation easements out there and growing within NRCS. I think we lead other federal agencies for the number of acres under easement, but yeah, 5 million across the country.
And your points of contact, if you want to learn more get more information, contact me. We like email, but you can call us on the telephone if you get on the directory. Our stewardship next presenting will be Nick Albert. He is our point of contact for our existing easements, our compatible use authorizations. And also speaking later will be Adam Dellinger about our CPP projects. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, and I'll get you queued up. Thank you. Any questions for Melissa?
Just a general comment. I feel strongly that this is probably one of the best uses of public funds that you can have when we invest in preserving a farm or forest land. Population continues to grow. It's in part of every conversation we have, food security, Chesapeake Bay. So I just, really compliment NRCS and the partnership with State Department of Agriculture to make that happen.
Thank you. Yes, a good way to protect all our conservation planning today for tomorrow.
And Doug, they just finished, an American Farmland Trust just finished a study on farm and rangeland protection program, which was a predecessor to HIL, as you know.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw a copy of that, but open farmland offered corridors for wildlife that offered
Co-benefits.
the co-benefits of carbon sequestration, reduction in nutrient pollution, cooler water temperatures, all that stuff. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for flagging that. We'll look for it.
Advance.
What is used to advance?
Anything? Yeah, got it.
All right. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mick Albert. As Melissa mentioned, I'm a stewardship specialist for all the conservation easement programs in Pennsylvania. So Melissa buys them, I watch them. I'm going to talk to you all today about compatible use authorizations on our wetland reserve program and our wetland reserve easements. So I think part of my job is to evaluate and dissect policy and present it in an understandable way. So rather than going through policy and citing everything to you, I'm just going to show you the insert up top, but then help you all understand what a compatible use authorization is. And really it's a vehicle or a method to allow a landowner to complete some type of activity on our properties that may otherwise be viewed as a violation. They are temporary, and as Denise mentioned, when we purchase these conservation easements, we are purchasing a certain bundle of sticks or rights to that land. And through these compatible use authorizations, we are giving those landowners certain rights back. The rights that we're giving back have to benefit the wildlife and habitat that we've set out to protect somehow. So of course, we're not going to permit some type of parking lot or home to be built on these properties. It has to be some type of activity that's benefiting the easement and what we set out to do. We are documented on an AD 1160 and supported by our NEPA evaluation maps and photos. Just to kind of bring everyone up, this is the WRE deed that we use when we are purchasing our conservation easements. We have the purpose and intent, and as Denise was mentioning earlier, we purchased nearly 95% of the rights. These are the rights that the landowner does retain when you purchase and go through a wetland reserve easement. So landowner still retains title, quiet enjoyment, control of access, minimal recreational uses and subsurface resources. So if a landowner ever wants to go out and do something to the property, they need to obtain a compatible use authorization, or really I like to say it's kind of like a permit. Within the deed, they are directed to obtain these compatible use authorizations from NRCS. So why am I talking about CUAs with you all today? We want to hear your input. We want to hear from you. So I put together, 5 common activities that are done on our easements. I'm not gonna present them, but they were emailed to you all and they are outside hard copy if you want to grab a copy. So the 5 compatible use authorizations that we're presenting to you all today are firewood harvest, food plots, noxious and invasive species control through herbicide use, mowed walking trails, and water level management. That's all I have. I appreciate anybody's comments or thoughts. Take your time and then try to send those back to us when you get the opportunity.
I think it was sent out about a week ago, so we typically give 30 days notice. So if anyone has comments, there are copies out there. And if you did not receive it and would like it, let me know or Mick know, and we can get that sent out to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vic. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have our financial assistance programs team. They're coming forward. So want to thank Ryan Cornelius. Ryan is acting Assistant State Conservationist for programs. And so Ryan, take it away.
Alrighty. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Ryan Cornelius. I'm the acting assistant state consulate program as well. Jared is on detail. We are in the middle of contracting season for EQIP and AMA. So I got some figures to go over with you guys. So we have 2 general pots of funds at this point. We have EQIP IRA. So yes.
Sorry, can you speak up
Yes.
just a little?
Yep, sorry.
Thank you. Just so everybody can.
Yep. So we have EQIP IRA through the Inflation Reduction Act. We were allocated $31,964,000. So as of last week, we had 90.5% of our EQIP IRA funds obligated. We are actually a little bit higher than that. I pulled numbers this morning. We are up to 93%. So things are moving forward. We ended up utilizing the Act Now process, which allowed us to speed up the contracting procedures. It helped us get contracts out the door quicker and contracts into the hand of farmers at this point. So to date, we had 359 contracts obligated, totaling $28,941,823 on almost 140,000 acres. So great work by the field getting these contracts out the door and on the ground. EQIP General, so funds through the Farm Bill. We were allocated $24,165,897 this year. And to date, we have 71 contracts obligated for over $2.7 million on 7,300 acres. So the big push early on was to get the EQIP IRA money spent and out the door. So we are now working on getting EQIP General wrapped up here. So field's doing great with that. We did just receive an additional $5.5 million to help target additional historically underserved applicants. And so we will be getting some more contracts out the door as well. So that'll bring our total up to over $29 million for EQIP General Farm Bill funds this year. We also use the Act Now process for our NWQI funds, so the National Water Quality Initiative funds pool. We ended up selecting 17 applications for funding, and to date, 5 contracts have been obligated for over $670,000 on 869 acres. And these numbers are included in the numbers above under EQIP General.
So just so everybody knows what Act Now is a way for producers to come into the office. It technically doesn't happen just like this, but the concept is come in, say, I want this practice, and walk out and know that, or have 95% accuracy that you're going to get a contract. So it's very simple, usually one program, one practice contracts. And so that was easily done for cover crops. For Act Now, EQIP, NWQI, that's much more in-depth, a lot more systems approach, not just one practice. So that's doing a lot of farmstead systems, but it's in a limited geographic area. And so those producers can come in. We know how much is dedicated. They can walk out and say, yeah, I pretty much have this contract. So either your scope is is minimized and the type of practice you're offered or the geographic area that you're offered.
Exactly, exactly.
I think as you
Yeah.
said earlier, John, cover crops are popular in Pennsylvania. So it was an easy one.
They sure are, but you can tell we had plenty of applications and that it was very successful.
Yeah.
So for AMA, this year, we were allocated $200,000. We have 2 applications pre-approved so far, and we'll be getting those out the door here shortly. I know the field's working on those currently. And AMA, RMA. So this is a separate pot of AMA funds associated with risk management. And the allocation for that this year was $196,432. And we received this later in the year. So field offices are still ranking applications, and the ranking deadline is May 3rd. So the Agricultural Management Assistance Program. So you can do a lot of the same practices that you can in EQIP, but it's mostly, it has to do with risk. So it used to be a much more high dollar program than it is at this point. But a lot of specialty crop type stuff, irrigation, high tunnels, that sort of thing is typically what you're looking at with AMA funds. But otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley Lennig, who's not here, but she's online, and she's going to go over CSP. Yes. Yep.
Additional 5.5 million to target historically underserved producers.
Yep.
Does that have a deadline?
So we're going to be looking at, so we accept applications year round. But what we're looking at being able to fund further down the list. So basically, we're going to continue looking at first round applications followed by later rounds as we go. We're not having a separate sign up for this 5.5 million, but we do accept applications year round. So if somebody does have a project that would fit in our programs, I do encourage them to sign up regardless of the time of year. Otherwise, any other questions? If not, I'll turn it over to Ashley. Or if you think of something later, I'll be around.
Questions online, huh?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Ryan.
Ashley,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ashley, did you want to drive your own?
No, I want you
Slides?
to do it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Just give me the signal.
Hello, I'm Ashley Lennig. As I mentioned, I'm a conservation program manager, and I oversee the programs that are listed here that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Next slide, Susan. So today I'm talking to you about Conservation Innovation Grants, Conservation Stewardship Program, and the National Water Quality Initiative. You just heard about that because that is under our program, Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Next. So first, for Conservation Innovation Grants, I know some people have been waiting to see an announcement come out for that. So our state competition of Conservation Innovation Grants is being adjusted at the national level. So we are just kind of in a waiting phase to find out when that's going to post. It was sent in some time ago and still under review. If you want to know when these news releases come out and are not currently signed up for our news release mailing list, let us know. We will have Molly Rose add you to our news release mailing list. Next slide, please. And we're going to talk about Conservation Stewardship Program. So you heard me talk last time about CSP renewals, and right now we're doing our classic program. We currently have over 10 million in funding for that program. We have what I'm calling our original program for $7.1 million, and then Inflation Reduction Act version or subcategory of that includes the climate smart practices. So we have over 3.1 million allocated to that. So those funds have to be used for climate smart and supporting practices. So we have a list of activities that would be practices and CSP enhancements that can be done under that funding category. If it doesn't fit there, then it would go into that original program for the remaining amount of funds. Next slide, please, Susan. So I recently made selections in all categories. We have ag land, and we have non-industrial private forest land categories. We have statewide categories, like some of our historically underserved farmers. And then we have area fund pools just across the state, west, northeast, and southeast. So we have 144 viable applications under that original CSP, and then 180 viable applications in our IRA fund pool. Next slide, please. That's all I had to touch on for CSP. We're just kind of getting started. We have our selections, and our field staff is currently working towards bringing them into contracts. Then for National Water Quality Initiative, we did some interesting things this year, I think. As I mentioned, it's under the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which we have everywhere, but this NWQI focuses on 5 watersheds across our state, which you'll see on the next slide. We were able to create a poster, or I worked up a poster with the watersheds and the kind of their goals and unique features and what was done to date in those areas. We also had, I like to have an annual meeting, so we had a meeting with our conservationists in those watersheds, and we all brought in some partners this year. So Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and U.S. Geological Survey were there to present what they're doing on these same watersheds and how we can work together. So I believe Ryan already mentioned this, but the allocation for NWQI for this fiscal year was over 3.1 million. And to date, we've pre-approved 17 applications with 5 of those active contracts totaling $670,000. Next slide, please. And here you can see, and if you're in the office today, it's, I believe, still in the hallway on the easel, is a poster board that we came up with that showed all the watersheds and what's been going on. On the top, you do have this as a handout as well, so I'm not sure that one picture seems to go in and out, but on the right side, there's a map that kind of shows you, well, actually, in the top kind of center, is a map that shows you where those watersheds are located in the state, and then each one is highlighted, so they all have a unique feature. For Warrior Run, it's sort of a small watershed, but it definitely has done a lot of outreach activities, many different outreach activities. And to date, their progress has been good. In the upper reaches of the watershed, they were removed from the Ag Impaired Streams list, which is very exciting. And they've installed fish habitat structures with U.S. Fish and Wildlife that you can see there. Well, you can't, maybe you have to look at the printout of the poster in the hall to see some of these pictures. Upper Yellow and Beaver Creek, kind of a unique aspect there was we were working there since 2017. So they did 29 contracts back then, and then in the newer version of the program from 2020 to 2023, they did 11 more contracts. And we're still interested in having some more water quality monitoring being done in that watershed. Then in Upper Kishicoquillas, the unique aspect there was a lot of Amish farms. They make up 66% of the 70% of the watershed that's in agricultural land. Nitrogen levels have stayed about the same, which are shown a chart at the bottom there. And phosphorus and total suspended solids have decreased by 76% and 62% respectively. So that was nice to see some progress there. And Maiden Creek, a unique feature there was the many partners that we have involved. You can see on the graph on the right side that nitrates are currently down, but they definitely have fluctuated due to storm events. And we can tell that by the increased turbidity readings. For Swatara Creek, a highlight there was that we installed, NRCS invested in a real-time monitoring device, a super gauge station that was installed in partnership with USGS. And we've seen turbidity decrease since 2018, reaching a 7% reduction, with overall data showing positive trends toward meeting their turbidity and participation goals. Next slide. That's all I had today, but I'll take any questions if there are any. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the agenda. The last non-VIP you have to listen to today. My name is Adam Dellinger. I'm the RCPP program manager here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I guess I get to control this. Perfect. Okay, so RCPP stands for Regional Conservation Partnership Program. And what this is, it's not really a grant program. It's an opportunity for partners and NRCS to kind of co-lead a program, a financial assistance program. And we get to leverage resources to make this happen, right? We can leverage financial resources, human resources, and do more together than we could separately. We do this through implementing a wide range of practices. Commonly in Pennsylvania, we're looking at easements and we're looking at land management contracts. So when I say land management contracts, that's sort of like our EQIP contracts, those producer contracts that we have to implement BMPs on farms. But there's a whole range of activities that are available through RCPP, including rentals, US held easements, and some other things. As the program grows, we'll probably expand into those in the future. But what's interesting about this RCPP program to me is that it's not a scattershot approach. We have a focused approach. Partners come to us and say, hey, we really want to work on a certain watershed, or we want to help a certain type of landowner. We want to just do something specific. Let's figure out how to work together to do this as a team. And then at the end, we have measurable outcomes that we can show. So as part of the proposals that come in for this program, you say, we're going to achieve soil health benefits, we're going to achieve water quality goals, et cetera, measure that and report at that at the end. So we can say, look at what we achieved with this program. I did want to just throw this slide of all of our active projects right now. I won't go into detail on them here, but this just gives you a little bit of an overview of the spread. So we have easements, BMPs, some are statewide, some are in Western PA, some are in Central PA, Southeastern PA. I do have some more details over there on the big board over there. There's some dollar amounts for all the active projects. There's also some details on this spreadsheet out there. But anyway, we have 8 projects that are currently working right now. And then we have 2 projects that we've been working on partnership negotiations. These projects were selected for funding in 23. Our partnership agreements are almost wrapped up. I'd say in a month we'll be done. Well, now that I said that, I better knock on wood. First, and I would like to go into just a little bit of detail on these ones because they're brand new. First project up here is with the Nature Conservancy as the lead partner. This is a multi-state project with Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. The NRCS investment's about $22 million. And essentially this project is focused in the Chesapeake Bay. And the goal is to help farmers adopt precision ag technology. So using remotely sensed data to capture the value of cover crops for the following cash crop. And then the second project I wanted to highlight was with the Maryland and Virginia Milk Producers Co-op Association. So the NRCS investment there is $10 million. And that's targeting the co-op members within their milk shed within a 4-state area. So PA, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. This is really to implement climate smart practices on member farms through that project area. We expect to start taking applications for land management contracts under this project in fiscal year 25. And I expect the Nature Conservancy project to start to ramp up in 25 as well.
So Adam, I think just to add, so we've had 10 projects since the 2018 Farm Bill. Mm-hmm. 8 of those 10 RCPPs were within the Chesapeake Bay watershed. So just so folks can get an idea of where that focused effort was been.
Yeah.
And these are the 2 new ones in the bag.
Yeah. Okay, so just a little overview of fiscal year 24 applications that have come in that have been selected for funding. Of those 8-10 active projects right now, under 5 of the projects, we still have a little bit of FA, and we are accepting applications and funding those contracts.
What that is? The FA.
Financial assistance.
Says for practices in the ground.
Right. So what I'm gonna talk about, because Melissa already covered easements. From here on out, I'm gonna be mostly specifically talk about those landowner contracts for BMP implementation.
Thanks.
So we have 5 projects here that, and most of these projects, actually, this funding will spin down most of the remaining funds left in these projects. There's been growing demand for these projects, for this money to do this work. And actually, the interesting thing here is this last project that we have with Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. It's a brand new project for this year, Farmland Preservation and Climate Change Mitigation. This is our first year accepting applications for this project. And we had an overwhelming response, very, very great response to this project. and $5 million worth of applications came in 1 year. So that says that there's a high demand for that kind of work. So that's very encouraging. Okay, so the big news right now with RCPP is the new Notice of Funding Opportunity. So, or NFO as we call it. And the reason it's big news right now is because this year is the most amount of money we've had for a round of new proposals for RCPP. Thanks to funding from both the Farm Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, we're looking at $1.5 billion that are available for new project proposals. Projects can be between $250,000 and $25 million, and typically they last 5 years long in length. And Heather, this reminds me, Heather, you called your program the slow cooker program, crock pot. So that got me thinking, it's like RCPP projects take a long time, 5 years. But so maybe with your permission, I want to workshop this and like maybe call my program the Instant Pot program. Because I'm like, it could take 5 years and be like a slow cooker and just really take a while and do some really good things. Sometimes if you add a little pressure, it like speeds up the work a little bit. But you still get a good product at the end. So I kind of like where you're going with that. Okay, so anyway, typically the funding split for RCPP is 75% that financial assistance going to landowners, 25% coming to partners to help implement the project, pay for that technical assistance, make the project happen. Okay, so the deadline for this current round is July 2nd, close of business July 2nd. So about 3 months is the total open period for applications. And I'll just say right now that if anyone out there is interested in a proposal, please talk to me as soon as possible so we can get those conversations started. But to dive a little deeper into certain parts of this, Denise mentioned the workload that we have in the Chesapeake Bay and how important it is to Pennsylvania conservation. And I did want to touch on what we call critical conservation areas, or CCAs. So traditionally with RCPP, half the money has been set aside in a fund pool for a statewide project, we know with political boundaries generally, and then half the money has been set aside for CCAs. And there's maybe a dozen or so CCAs across the country. In Pennsylvania, we have two. We have the Chesapeake Bay, which is our main one. We have a tiny little sliver of around Erie for the Great Lakes as well. For folks that are interested in projects that address critical conservation area geographies and resource concerns that are listed here, inadequate habitat and water quality. For this round of funding, 65% of that 1.5 billion is going to be targeted for CCA themed projects. So obviously there's a huge opportunity for anyone that's interested in a CCA project this year. And speaking of CCAs, also new this year, National Office has created an opportunity for underserved entities that need help with an application. They have a contract with a third-party organization that will help certain organizations work through some of the aspects of the proposal. They won't help them write the proposal, but they'll help them work through some of the details and then turn it over to the collaboration with us to develop that. So it's at no cost. Up to 20 proposals will be supported this way. They must be CCA projects. And so when I say certain underserved organizations, I mean a community-based organization, a Hispanic serving institution, tribal organizations. It's really, I think, going to be taken at a case-by-case basis if the organizations think they may qualify. More details about this opportunity are on the RCPP How to Apply website. Also on the How to Apply website are links to these two webinars for interested applicants. And I would strongly encourage anyone interested in RCPP to attend one of these in person if at all possible. These are recorded, but the recordings take quite a while to get posted. So definitely try to register and attend one of these. The links to register are on this presentation, but they're also on that How to Apply webpage. Also on the How to Apply webpage is a very long list of comprehensive guidelines. So there's proposal guidances, there's copies of these NFOs, there's contact information, there's FAQs, a lot of good information on this website. And if you need to get there, just Google RCPP How to Apply, and it'll be the first hit. That being said, obviously, if there's any questions about this process, about the program, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as your first contact, and I'll help you out.
So just for those that are interested in applying, we always say you need to work through the state conservationist. There's a state conservationist questionnaire. We work with the entities to kind of fill out that questionnaire, get the certain, TA costs, kind of outlined with that questionnaire. And, you know, it's really critical that, we, Adam and myself and Ryan, help the entities that are interested, because it does play into looking at whether how far they get in the process to be ranked and accepted. So really, if you're interested, please reach out to us and we'll help start the process and get that questionnaire completed.
Thanks, Denise. So that's all I have, Susan.
All we have.
I can keep talking about RCPP. Huh?
Yes. Are there questions for Adam?
Are you gonna do your?
So just a little bit, that's why you've seen me come in and out. I didn't mean to be rude today, but, the undersecretary is expected to be here. But despite Heidi and I telling him, right, Heidi, he will not get here from DC in 2 hours. His scheduler seemed to say he was leaving at noon, so he should be here shortly for any of those that want to stay and have a visit with him. Certainly you're welcome to. By all means, you don't have to stay, but appreciate everybody being on the call. And hopefully we can have a Q&A, question and answer, but we are waiting for him. So, and we're checking phones, and I'm even checking other people's phones if you see me. So sorry about that.
I can make coffee. It's gotten chilly in here. I'm ready for a cup of coffee.
There's coffee.
There's coffee in there?
Yes.
If anybody would like coffee in the kitchen across the way.
There's coffee and snacks in there, so please help yourself and take a break.
Thank you all that are online. We are going to leave the line open if anyone wants to hang out, go do something and take a walk outside and come back. We're going to keep the line open for now. Okay, thank you all.
And then keep checking. And then I got mine.
Okay, good.
I expected